Welcome to the Patel Perspective podcast. I'm your host, Harsh Patel. I currently hold a bachelor's degree in neuroscience and minors in biology and biochemistry. Through that education, this podcast allows me to deliver proper health science and self-improvement information to the people around the world. If you have liked any of my podcast episodes and you would like to show support, the only way to do so is by subscribing to my YouTube channel. You also don't really want to miss out on the future highly intellectually stimulating conversations that I'm going to have with our future guests. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Patel Perspective. I'm so excited to be here in today's episode. We will talk about how to achieve mental clarity. Mental clarity is a really interesting topic because who doesn't want to be mentally clear? I have comprised about 9 tools that you could try that could increase your mental clarity. This will be an in-depth podcast, but I would like to also make it not that big so that you can digest this information in under 1 hour. Just a side note, with whatever is happening with the podcast, we will have guests in the future. Hopefully in the next episode, you won't see me just speaking into the camera. We have 3 guests lined up for the Patel Perspective podcast in the future. And so you definitely don't want to miss out those conversations. They will be wide range. They won't just be about science. They will be about different things that you really don't want to miss out. So click the notification button so that you really don't miss those episodes. So why is mental clarity really important? Mental clarity is basically mental health. Mental health right now is a buzzword. Everyone wants to care about their mental health. And it is highly related to mental clarity. If your mental health is right, then your mental health is. If your mental health is right, your mental clarity is also on point. And when we talk about mental clarity, we're also talking about cognition and cognitive processes that occur from our brain. It is very important for people in today's age to have mental clarity because, believe it or not, people do have to engage in some sort of deep work every day in order to keep up with their to-do lists, their tasks, schedules, and work, and all that good stuff. To get things done, basically, you need mental clarity. And without that, you might not be a highly achieving individual. From students to older individuals, mental clarity is essential. It actually determines your brain age. Like how mentally clear you are kind of tells yourself how old you are in terms of your brain age. And learning and memory also comes from mental clarity. Learning and memory are essential cognitive processes that everyone cares about. If you're mentally clear, your conversations will be better. Your relationships will get better. You don't want to be in a conversation with someone where the other person is not clear on what they're saying. I have experienced that before. Like throughout my high school years and initial college years, it was really hard for me to literally carry out conversations with people. One of the reasons was that I was not mentally clear most of the time. I was always distracted. I was socially anxious. And so you really need mental clarity for conversations and really holding relationships with different people. As I talked about being distracted in conversations, I think distractions are also a big part in today's world where people are just distracted mostly all the time. I'm not talking about all the people, but there's some moments in our lives where we are distracted due to work, stress, anxiety, and all that negative stuff. And so mental clarity and the idea of improving mental clarity is essential. And lastly, I also want to point out that mental clarity is key to make short-term and long-term decisions. Like short-term decisions can be like what to eat in the next meal. If you are on a high-protein diet like me, I always think about what is the best way I could fit my protein in. What is the most logical meal that I could have next so that I can conquer my physical health. Also, this goes for long-term decisions. As I said, that career-wise, family planning, like making money. If you are not mentally clear on what to do with your life in about 5 years, you will have tremendous time on figuring things out. And so, yeah, you have to be mentally clear. And those are all the reasons, in summary, why you as an individual should seek to be mentally clear. And so I have comprised about 9 tools that you can use in your daily life to really get ahead on your mental game. You don't have to do these tools, like carry out these tools or use them in order. You also don't want to use all of them. You certainly may use all of them, but you can pick and choose on what tools you like to improve your mental clarity. So I'm just going to get started here. We're not waiting for anything. It's just me talking into a camera. So we'll just get started on number 1, scheduling, planning, and goal setting. An organized mind is an organized life. If you agree with that phrase, you have to believe that organizing your day will make you mentally clear. And this is like structuring your day, structuring your meals, what to wear, when you will do certain things in your day, like what time you will eat, what time you will have meetings with other people. I'm not talking about business meeting, but like having dinner with a friend, or like something, going on a date, like everything. That's like structuring your day out. And that happens the night before or the first thing in the morning. This is like utilizing to-do lists, time blocks, weekly goals, and that all is what short-term planning is. Short-term planning, and we have to divide this up, right? So planning and goal setting could be short-term and could be long-term. You, as an individual, really have to have an idea on what to do short-term and what to do long-term. That will overall help you in improving your mental clarity as weeks go by, years go by, etc. So short-term planning is, as I kind of really told you, is having to-do lists, time blocks, and weekly goals. Now I'll break them down very specifically so that you can understand what I'm trying to say here. For to-do lists, first thing you have to remember, the more things you will put on your to-do list, the harder it will be to complete it. The lesser things you have on your to-do list, the better it is. Like, who doesn't want a shorter to-do list? You can brag about having a lot of things to do in a day, but are you really completing all the things in your list? I personally just like to have like 4 to 5 things in the day on my to-do list. Now, for anyone who knows Ali Abdal, he is a productivity YouTuber. And one thing I have really learned from his videos is that what you create sometimes for the days that, it depends on the days. Sometimes you create daily highlights. It's basically asking yourself a question. The most important question it is, what is one thing you would do today that will make your day successful? That's incredible. If I had to pick today, right? Today is Sunday for me. And so I made a promise to myself yesterday, I will shoot a podcast no matter what will happen. And so on my to-do list today, And my daily highlight, I would have a daily highlight and then a bunch of different tasks to do today. But my daily highlight would be, I will shoot a podcast today. Because I think if I shoot a podcast today and I look back when I'm getting ready for bed, just reflecting on my day, I will be just an happier individual because I did what I told myself to do. The reason why I told myself to do that is because I really wanted to do it. I am fulfilling what I believe in and what I want to do. So that is how you would structure your to-do lists. Now, you might have your own system, definitely not disregarding anyone from using their own system, but that is how I go about it. But generally, the theme of a to-do list is having less number of stuff that increases clarity throughout the day. Like sometimes I'll just have 3 things. Work, basically work for money. 2 is reading, and 3 going to the gym. There's no room for mess ups and no room for like decreasing your quality of your cognition, right? Next thing is time block. Now, Elon Musk uses time block a lot. And so if a busy person like him uses a time block, then it does not really, actually it helps you because as an average people like us can really use time blocks in a productive manner. So today, I'm kind of following a time block. You're like, you don't know the situation in like an hour or two, so you kind of lose track of that time block. And so time blocks are really key way to structure your day. And for people who are wondering what a time block is just dividing your day up in an hour of chunks and then assigning activities or tasks in those hours. So I woke up today very early, 5:30 a.m. And for the first hour of the day, I just planned and organized for the coming week. And so that's a time block from 5:30 to 6:30 planning. That's creating a time block. And then 6:30 to 7:30 showering, getting ready, and all the good stuff. Cleaning, you can put anything. So that's how you would go about creating a time block. This creates incredible mental clarity also, as you can see, because you're clear on an hour-to-hour basis on what to do. And you kind of push yourself to complete tasks in under an hour. And lastly, weekly goals. Now, I'm almost done. I'm currently kind of reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that, one of the chapters, the author really emphasizes the idea of planning weekly instead of day by day. I think that is a better way. I agree with the author because when you plan weekly, you can assign specific things to specific days, right? And so I could just say, I can list a bunch of things under my weekly goals. Saying getting 4 workouts in, getting 2 sessions of cardio, shooting a YouTube video, shooting 2 short form videos. Now, those are my weekly goals. Those are goals of the week, not a day, because I can't fit 4 workouts in. I can't do like a bunch of different shoots for my videos. And so you then what you do is you take that weekly goal list and then you assign to different days of the week. And that is where the power is, because what happens is the days when you're really busy, you really don't want to do the things on your weekly goal list. The days when you're not busy, for example, for me, when I'm not really busy, I will tell myself, okay, on this day, I'm not busy, therefore I will shoot a YouTube video and 2 short form videos. And so that is how the weekly goals work. Now, this could be applied to like so many different tasks, like grocery shopping, planning out high protein meals, but it's also like more of like tangible goals, like you really want to achieve like losing a pound of body fat in that week. So this is a really effective system with short-term planning. Let's move on now to long-term planning. This is where the big picture stuff is. This is where you want to use like calendars and stuff. And you also want to like journal or like write free form in your notes app or like on a notebook, and just kind of like plan for the next 3 months, 6 months, a year of where you really want your life to go. Sometimes it might be unpredictable, but sometimes it might not be. And so you really have to see, depending on your situation, how you can plan long term. So calendars is a great way. Like if you are, for example, taking the GREs in, let's say April 13th, you would put that on your calendar and set a reminder for it. And then you would study every single week or every single day, depending on what kind of schedule you have. This could be applied to anything: buying a house, marriage, anything. Long-term planning is essential. So 2 types of planning are really key, because long-term planning is so essential to your well-being. I think it's more essential to short-term, or more essential than the short-term, because long-term planning is like, let's say a big goal, right? Let's just say long-term planning is like losing 50 pounds. But what about the short-term planning? Like in order to accomplish that big goal of losing 50 pounds, you have to break it down into weeks. If you want to lose 50 pounds in a year, that is 52 weeks. And so you're kind of shooting for a pound a week to ultimately lose 50 pounds. So your weekly goal would be losing a pound a week in that health aspect. So that is how you would basically structure your life. I personally use the app Notion. In my last podcast, I really showed how I use it for studying, but I do also use it for planning. That goes for to-do lists, time blocks, weekly goals, creating a master schedule, like everything. My whole entire life is on Notion. I kind of learned it from Ali Abdal too, because he likes posting this type of stuff, like how to plan and goal setting and all that stuff. And so I just use Notion. It's just way easier for me too, because everything is in one, and everything is in just, it's portable. I can open it on my iPad, on my phone, on my laptop, and so anywhere. So I really love that idea of using Notion for organizing my life. So yeah, lastly, I do really want to mention the Eisenhower decision matrix. The author of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People also talks about this in the book. And that is basically creating a to-do list sometime. This is what I'm actually trying this out this week. You have 4 quadrants on your list. And those 4 quadrants are either urgent, important, urgent, not important, and one is urgent. I have to check. I should know this, but I do have to check quick. So you basically have 4 quadrants, and in those 4 quadrants you have urgent, important, the first quadrant. The second quadrant could be non-urgent, important. The third could be urgent, non-important. And then the last one would be not important, not urgent. And so everything that is urgent and important will go in the first quadrant. And that would be like, for example, last week I had to do an oil change. And so that would be urgent, because if I don't do my oil change, my car will get bad and all that negative stuff. And so that's an urgent. The urgent, non-important stuff, the not urgent, important stuff is quadrant 2, which is all your habits and stuff. It's not urgent. Like you're not. So it's not like I have to wake up and let's say do my homework. Like I don't have to do that. It's urgent, or it's not. It's important, but it's not urgent. So like the habits, like meditation, like gym, reading, those are the those are for non-urgent and important. For urgent and not important, that those are like the mundane stuff, like some appointment, some meeting, or not meeting, so like something that is like really not important, and but it's urgent. Like I had to I don't know, I can't give an example because I don't have anything on that list right now. And then lastly, you would do non-urgent and non-important, and that would be just trash stuff. Like you already completed it, or it just not urgent and not important. Like it's just bugging you, and that would be the space to put it. So that is the Eisenhower decision matrix. You can just look it up on Google on how to create it if you didn't understand what I said. Okay, we spent a lot of time, I see, 20 minutes on just one thing. But yeah, we will go through every single one of them. Second is highly addictive activities. So highly addictive activities would be social media, scrolling, and obviously for majority of the males is porn addiction in the morning and watching porn and ejaculation in the morning. That is highly problematic. That's everything. That's from social media to scrolling to ejaculation and even sex in the morning. Now, highly controversial. I like controversy. And so that's why I am putting this in number 2. Don't feel guilty of it, of doing like scrolling and all that, what I said. Everyone does it. I have done it. Some days I just want to wake up and just check my phone quickly, like scroll on Instagram, like see how many likes I have, see how many YouTube views I have. That's just a part of human being. Technology is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. I'm succumbed to the malicious cycle of scrolling. And technology is not going anywhere. So you can only manage it and control it. But if you want to optimize your mental clarity, you have to not give in to your urges. I do not think scrolling and using your phone serves any good for your mental clarity, like I said. So I have made a video few months ago about social media fasting, and why social media fasting is important, because when you look at highly stimulatory images in the morning, you are flooding your brain with dopamine, and then you have kind of a downregulation of dopamine, and then you start that cycle again. Because of that downregulation, you're already flooding your brain with dopamine, and then that downregulation of dopamine is kind of causing demotivation. Demotivation is distraction in disguise. I mean, by any means, like by all means, you can check your phone in the morning if you have to. Do it. But do not gawk at pictures or unintentionally scroll through TikTok in the hopes to land on a twerking video. You have the power to control your hands and your eyes. And I think using and like scrolling in the morning, if you really want to optimize your routine and mental clarity, is just a bad thing. Like it's actually bad. I have witnessed it in myself, in my own behavior. So that's why this is in number 2. Speaking of scrolling through TikTok in hopes of finding something that arouses you sexually, many men in the morning watch porn, have urges to watch porn, and some of them have sex in the morning. Whoever your role model is, when Andrew Tate was successful through YouTube, now some of the videos of those on TikTok were taken out of context. I understand that. But in one of those videos, he was basically saying that he has sex before going to the gym. And he said that he has a greater pump when he does that. Well, if that was the case, then good for him. He is one of the luckiest humans in every way as possible. But we are not all Andrew Tates. We're not all like each other. And so I'm just going to speak from the biological standpoint of this. When you when you ejaculate in the morning, whether it is from watching porn or through sex, what you're doing is you are increasing your prolactin levels after ejaculation. Prolactin levels, when they are elevated, there is a oppositely reducing effect on dopamine, testosterone, and estrogen. So you can guess what is happening to you in the morning if your testosterone is tanking, your dopamine is tanking, and your estrogen is tanking all at the same time. Your key hormones are tanking at the same time, where in comparison, they should be high in the morning, so you can leverage those hormones into do productive, deep, useful work. That is my take on the excessive ejaculation problem in today's society. Now, sexual pleasure is important. Don't get me wrong. What I really want to emphasize here is that don't do it first thing in the morning, or don't do it before a workout. I feel like the optimal way of getting or engaging in sexual pleasure is later in the day. It could be later in the afternoon or even after the afternoon. I feel like that is the best way possible. And so I urge people who want to optimize mental clarity, you want to also try that. And yeah, so as I said, prolactin is a hormone that is released post ejaculation. Elevation of that hormone results in reduction of dopamine, testosterone, and estrogen, and that increases demotivation. That increases distraction, because most people who are porn addicts, right? Talking about not sex addiction now, porn addiction. When they open that first floodgate of watching the first video, they will do that continuously. This addiction problem, any addiction in neuroscience you research about, the basis and the similarities are so strikingly interesting, because when you open the floodgates, you just give into those cycles again and again, and you don't understand what is happening. That is even with binge eating too, and with binge eating and food addiction. So when I was first trying to lose weight and I was restricting myself of too many calories and too many foods that I liked, what happened is, for example, one day I would just go slightly above like maintenance, or maybe even maintenance. But that day I promised myself at the start of the day that I would be in a caloric deficit. But when I did not fulfill that promise of myself, I hit the maintenance calories. I said to myself, I messed up. I ate 500 calories over and I hit my maintenance. What is the point of even being in a caloric deficit today? And so I'll just eat extra 500 today. I'll just have an extra this or extra that. And that will all combine into a large binge eating day. And that is how addiction works. It just pulls you deeper into that hole. And that increases distraction, because then you feel guilt. Your mind is not where it needs to be, and you know that too. You are less mentally clear on what you want to do with your day. So I urge people, stop scrolling, stop doing things that are decreasing your dopamine levels by a way of highly increasing first and then down regulation, because that's what happens if there's a high stimulant, right? And so that is what I advise. And let's get to number 3. Number 3 is meditation. Meditation is no brainer. Mindfulness is essential for mental clarity. So I think meditation is one of the best tools that you can actually do right now in the mornings, particularly because I've talked about it in my Instagram reel before. Meditation, when you do at night, research supports that it reduces your sleep quality. But if you only want to do it at night, that's fine. It's actually up to you. Well, it's research is basically like, if it doesn't work on you, then it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work on you, right? So meditation, if you only have time for night meditation, you can do it before bed. But I usually do it in the morning because Andrew Huberman also talks about it in his podcast of not doing meditation after like 5 p.m. So I usually do it first time when I wake up, if I would. And I do 5 minutes of breathing meditation. I just focus on my breath for 5 minutes. I am kind of slacking on that, I have to admit. But what is the neurochemistry or the neuroscience behind meditation is that the levels of acetylcholine goes up. Acetylcholine is the molecule of attention. It is a central nervous system neurotransmitter, or is a nervous system neurotransmitter. Meditation seems to be a great warm-up for deep work sessions, because when I was in college, I used to do 5-minute meditations just before studying, and it just put me in the frame and the right mindset to tackle on that deep work. So yeah, that is meditation. You can do any type of meditation that you like. Certainly, this podcast is not about like types of meditation that's best for mental clarity. It's just that you having a practice that is mindful, which serves to your purpose of improving your mental clarity. Number 4 and number 5 will be kind of similar, but not quite, as you will see. Number 4 is fasting. This is the first behavioral tool that I used to improve my mental clarity. When I was in college, I took chemistry my freshman year, and I realized that I just dozed off in class. I had tremendous brain fog and tremendous down regulation of alertness. It is just interesting because I was a vegetarian mostly growing up. And so the first tool I used was fasting. And then over time, I became full-time non-vegetarian. Because when you're, like, I was semi-vegetarian the first 18 years of my life. I would eat like chicken would be the max thing I would eat. Like that would be even like once a week or twice a week. But now I have chicken every single day mostly, and I also have red meat. I have eggs every single day, and so my diet is so much better, and I feel so much better, so mentally clear. And so number 5 is low carb and keto meals. You don't have to be on a ketogenic diet. You could certainly be on a ketogenic diet, but you don't have to be on a ketogenic diet. So 4 and 5 are kind of similar. The reason why they're similar, so one of the ways why they're similar is because fasting and ketogenic meals and high protein, low carb meals have the same effects as fasting. The fact one of the reasons they're not similar is because one of them, you could do it while you're vegetarian, like fasting. When I started fasting, I was a vegetarian. With low carb and keto, I was not a vegetarian. I ate everything basically. And so that's the difference. So let's just do fasting first. This is a tool that you can use to increase mental clarity, because a lot of research supports that intermittent fasting increases cognitive performance. Now, just a little side note, you could say. So there are only two states you're in terms of feeding, right? Either you're in a fasted state or either you're in a fed state. And when you are in a fed state, your insulin goes up and you're just breaking down that food, and then you enter a fasting state over time. Fasting state is a reflex mechanism in response to the fed state. The body wants to avoid hypoglycemia. So it kind of increases biochemical reactions to restore blood glucose levels. And so there are two main things that are going on. There might be more. I'm not a doctor. But there are two things is going on, right? So increase of gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis is a biochemical reaction where your liver increases the synthesis of glucose to maintain your blood sugar levels. And the second thing is fatty acid oxidation. Now, when you're in a caloric deficit, it's not that when you're in a caloric deficit, you break down fat. The rate of fat oxidation is another word for like breaking down fat. Fatty acid oxidation occurs all the time. It's the rate at which it occurs all the time that matters. And so when you are in a fasted state, you increase fatty acid oxidation, and one of the byproducts of fatty acid oxidation is ketone bodies. Ketone bodies can enter the brain, pass through the blood-brain barrier. Only maybe a handful of things can pass through the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is the barrier where there's a selection of certain molecules only that could enter the brain and the neurons can use. Ketone bodies could enter the blood-brain barrier, and they're used for ATP. ATP is the energy currency of the cells. And so in the fasted state, you're not dying, you're not starving. You're just using your body's machinery to synthesize glucose and make ATP so that your brain and your cognition is up to the mark. Now, additionally, I would want to point out that in the fasted state, you have increases in epinephrine levels and the activity of sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is called the fight and flight state, or is associated to the fight or flight state. And in that way, what is going on is that when you're fasting, your epinephrine goes up. Those epinephrine molecules kind of increase your alertness because you are in the fight or flight state. When you increase your alertness, you are more sensitive to the attention that you're trying to cultivate, and that plays into your mental clarity. I use this a lot all the time. That every single day I fast. After waking up, I'm talking about not fasting throughout the night. I'm talking about number of hours I fast after waking up. I usually have around 6 hours. I would fast for 5 to 6 hours after waking up. And so that really helps me to just be mentally clear, because when I put food in my system, it's just a little bit like my mental cognition, my cognitive performance is off. And I've seen that during my undergrad, and that's why the most of my studying I've done my last 3 years of my undergrad is during fasted state, and that has gotten me tremendous grades in my exams and homework and etc. And lastly, biologically, physiologically, I should say, increases in glutamate. Glutamate is a central nervous system excitatory neurotransmitter, and that is increased with fasting. And when there is also an elevation of a neurotransmitter like glutamate, it also supports this mental clarity, because your neurons really communicate via neurotransmitters. And if you have a higher amount of those stimulatory, excitatory neurotransmitters, it just improves your mental clarity. And so, yeah. So this is how I would advise you to do fasting. You could do like multiple kind of windows. You want to feel when you're fasting, you want to feel like you are slightly hungry, but not hungry to a point, and not hypoglycemic to a point where you are craving food. That's in a very calorically restricted stage. Like that's like probably you're depriving yourself of a lot of foods that you like. That's when that happens. So you really want to look for that slight hunger state, but you're focused. That is the state you really want to look for. And that for me usually happens like after I wake up, and that lasts till about, I wake up around 7 these days, 7:30, and I don't have my meals until like 11:30, 12. And so that's like maybe 4 or 5 hours, right? So yeah, after 12 I get really hungry, and so I have my first meal just right before 12. And so yeah, you want to be in that stage so that you can really feel that your mental clarity is improving. Moving on to the next, number 5, low carb and keto meals. The low carbs and keto meals is like just mimicking fasting. My first meal is usually really low in carb. It's under 50 grams of carbs, just because I just like being in that. Even like there's so many people do that. Like Andrew Huberman does that. There's this one YouTuber, another YouTuber who does that I know. There's so many people who utilize this method of eating. Now, I'll just share what I like as a person with an Indian descent. It's really hard to share this because not everyone from the culture I'm from will follow this because of their religious beliefs or their cultural and societal expectations. But I'll just share what I do so that you can get a little perspective. My first meal would be high in protein and high in fats. Primary sources of my fats are from animals and not from like oils and all that stuff. I would have butter too. I have no regrets in having butter, because saturated fatty acids like butter and cholesterol from the eggs are really important for your cells, hormones, and neurotransmitter production in your body. So I will have butter, and as I said, I will have animal fats like sausage, bacon. So for me, it is just really, it's just neuroprotective for me. And I just feel a lot different when I'm having healthy animal fats compared to some breakfast that's like cooked in a lot of oil. So yeah, as I said, healthy fats are really important for your body. Saturated fat. So if you look at the structure of saturated fat, carbon, hydrogen, long chains of carbons and hydrogens. When you look at a cell, go so deep and zoom into a cell is covered by what is called a cell membrane. Membrane is a selective structure or the selective boundary where it selects and really kind of, basically a selective boundary. And that selective boundary, cell membrane, is made up of phospholipids. It has a phosphate head that is hydrophilic, and the middle of that cell membrane is hydrophobic, made up of fatty acid. Saturated, one tail is saturated fatty acid. The other tail is a little kinked, meaning unsaturated fatty acid. So when there's new cell synthesis or like remodeling of the cell membrane, saturated fats are really important to restore that cell membrane structure. And for the cholesterol part, your cell membrane also has cholesterol. And in different varying temperatures, like let's say you change from, your body goes through from different weathers and different temperatures, right? And so cholesterol is very important in that because it maintains the fluidity of the cellular membrane. Also to note, cholesterol is a precursor to a lot of different hormones like testosterone. It is testosterone, estrogen. Cholesterol has 4 circular rings, like if you look at the structure, and testosterone, like that. So testosterone and estrogen like are made from cholesterol. So so fats are really important. So do not go on a low-fat diet. I mean, certainly if everything looks right, your blood profiles and everything look right, go on a low-fat diet if that works. But I think most people, low-fat diet is not a way to go. Overall, what I'm really trying to say here is better functioning brain, increased mental clarity. If you just fuel your brain with healthy fats and keep it low carb most of the day, in the first meal of the day, then you have increased mental clarity. I have my carbs and I have my sugars late in the day because that is how I like it. My dinners are usually between 4 and 6 p.m. At 6 p.m. after, I don't really like to have food. Sometimes it might go over depending on different situations. And so there is obviously after 6 p.m. or after my last meal, I find myself to have a decreased mental clarity. Number 6, you can probably guess it, sleep. We all know that we have to do this, but we somehow lack the understanding of having good sleep. Only a few people take action in improving their sleep quality, and improving the sleep quality will give you direct results on your mental clarity too. Lack of sleep will reduce your short-term and long-term memory, the ability to form short-term and long-term memory. And in that way, it could really affect your mental clarity. Sleep leads to alertness, right? Sleep is like a cessation of, what's it called? After you wake up from sleep, right, there's an increase in wakefulness, and that only happens if you have sufficient sleep. Wakefulness is alertness. Alertness is a part of mental clarity. So I'm just going to give you some tips on how to get good sleep. Many people do this, or many people can do this and use this. So number one thing that has really helped, might be a little funny. I like to wear the least amount of clothes as possible at night. I love to stay cooler. I get pretty hot sometimes really easily. I'm kind of a mixed individual. Some parts of the day I'm really chilly, and then some parts I'm really hot. And so at night, I just wear the least amount of clothes as possible. No matter what, I turn the fan on and turn down the heat. I want my room to be chilled as possible because your body requires a chilled environment to basically stay asleep and fall asleep. So the second thing is avoiding bright light after local sunset, or it does not happen for me. I would just say it, for the past couple months, I have really been having issues with just having high quality sleep. I do have high quality sleep, but like there's some days in the week that like I just have to be on my phone or on my laptop just because of the content creation stuff. It's just hard sometimes. So I feel like having light, using light, bringing that to bedtime, like phone, does really decrease your sleep quality and does increase like waking up in the middle of the night often, like moving around and all that stuff. Now I have to look that up and research on that, like if viewing light can disrupt your sleep in that way. It probably does. But yeah, the third thing is having like some sort of supplement like magnesium. So I usually, when I have a magnesium supplement at home, I will take magnesium like 30 minutes prior to bedtime. That gives me sleep quality. And then the last thing is investing in a sleep tracker. And that gives me tremendous insights on how I'm sleeping. And so those are my tips. Sleep, pretty self-explanatory. People can just use this tool. Like you have to get started right now, tonight, to really see mental clarity the next day. Number 7 is exercise. Either it's resistance training or cardio. You pick your own poison. You challenge yourself physically. You will have increased mental clarity. Exercises a few times a week has obviously shown in research that it improves memory, sleep, anxiety, and energy levels. We all have had that day. Like Christmas break is a great example. All day, one of the days in Christmas break, I did nothing. I just sat on the couch all day, and I couldn't even add 2 + 2 in my head because my mental alertness and mental clarity was so down because it's just being sedentary all day. And so you can just think that if you have a job that really requires you to sit down all day, it just really sometimes really plays negatively in the ability to improve your mental clarity. Exercising in the morning and evening both are good. I personally feel that exercising in the morning is more of like boosting your alertness if you don't do like powerlifting and stuff. When I used to like do strength training a lot, I would do that later in the day, like anywhere between afternoon and evening. But in the mornings, usually I keep my strength training to minimal in the weeks. So that gives me alertness. And for people who like working out in the evenings, I feel like for me, it's more of like a relaxation or stress relief, even reduction of anxiety I have. Like it's just relaxing, calmness, and all of that good stuff. And so if you want to use exercise, there's no reason like you don't want to, because it's one of the best tools for mental clarity. Because I started working out in college, started working out at 18, like religiously working out at 18, weightlifting that is. And you don't know that how much of your nervous system is used while working out, because we have what is called neuromuscular junctions, and that is all nervous system impacting and influencing your muscles to move. And we are made for movement. Majority of our tasks, you would say, throughout the day comes from the brain, from the central nervous system. And the output is the muscle, right? And so it's extremely essential to have an exercise routine, because it's just going to help you in mental clarity. Because if you exercise more often, it is just better for your brain health. Now, these last two things are kind of supplemental based, and those are number 8, caffeine, and number 9, creatine. Now, caffeine is a stimulant, increases dopamine levels. It also increases the receptors of dopamine. So when you have an increase of dopamine receptors, the signaling of dopamine is like kind of registered by the nerve cells in a greatest manner, because the signaling is at a high point. Just because the reception is at the high point, the receptors. And so caffeine is a stimulant. So some other effects of caffeine are increasing acetylcholine, the molecule of attention, increasing epinephrine levels, which is the molecule of the sympathetic nervous system. Caffeine also inhibits the effects of adenosine. Adenosine overall informs the body that you are tired. And so caffeine kind of like increases your alertness in that way by inhibiting the effects of adenosine. Adenosine is a buildup molecule from ATP. So throughout the day, your body uses ATP. You have a buildup in adenosine and you go to sleep. The next day, if you're sleep deprived, you still have those buildup of adenosine from the last day. And so people who drink caffeine can kind of suppress that adenosine. But the adenosine gets built, it never goes away until you get proper sleep. But the point being is that is how the adenosine system works. And yeah, so caffeine is a stimulant drug, increases focus, attention, and does lead to increase in mental clarity. I don't usually drink more than, I would say, 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day. It might be a lot for some people, but I think 2 to 3 for me is pretty good. Also, if you look at ADHD research, caffeine is a really positive stimulant for people who have ADHD or who are suffering from like slight or mild symptoms of ADHD. A year ago, I thought that I had symptoms of ADHD, and I think I might have symptoms still of ADHD, but I have done everything in my power, like meditation, coffee, planning, goal setting, scheduling, to really kind of not influence my symptoms of ADHD, even if I do, into like impact it or influence in like other aspects of my life, like my relationship, works, and every aspect of my life. So I kind of tried. It's ongoing. I don't know if I have those symptoms or even if I have ADHD, and I would never take anything like things like Adderall and modafinil, and I would just stick with these tools that keep me on track and just clear focus or clear setting, goal setting, sleep, exercise. those are the things I really focused on for the past year. And so I don't really give that much thought to it. But if you have ADHD or symptoms of ADHD, even if you're using like Adderall, like so many college students use Adderall. And so I just replace it with coffee. Stop putting like sugars and creams in your coffee first thing in the morning, because that is not really, it should be. If you want to optimize caffeine, I think it comes best from black coffee or any of the other caffeine food products. And so for my caffeine routine, I have coffee every single day without a single day in the past year of missing it. I can proudly say that's the first habit that I have like carried out for like more than a year. And I've also heard that like having caffeine too early in the day could negatively impact your acne. I do have bad acne, and so I have to follow up on that research. And I'm also trying to not just like wake up and drink coffee first thing in the morning. What I am doing is, as I said in my, I think, episode 1 of the Patel Perspective, I wake up in the morning and I usually just go to the gym, and then I come home and then have coffee. So I'm having like 3 to 4 hours of abstinence from caffeine and then having coffee. And it just feels so much better. And yes, on some days like a Sunday like today, I had coffee an hour after I woke up, which is pretty good for what I did back in the day. Like when I was a sophomore in college, I used to have coffee immediately after waking up because I woke up really early at like 5 a.m. For studying, and it just helped me to stay awake at that 5 a.m. Morning time. So caffeine helps me to increase my mental clarity, and I use it in conjugation with fasting, as you can tell. And so it's a great way, a great low cost way to increase your mental clarity if you haven't been doing so without sugar and cream in the morning. Lastly, we're going to talk about creatine monohydrate. Creatine monohydrate is a endogenous, meaning it is produced by your liver and kidneys, and then it's then found in the muscles. It's then transported in muscles and then stored there. It's an endogenous chemical. People take dietary, or people can get dietary creatine from meat, and also supplements. Like I take creatine every single day. One of the direct reasons, or one of the primary reasons of taking creatine that has been strongly supported, statistically significantly supported in research, is for increasing muscle mass, because it kind of attracts water in your muscle cells. And so your lean mass goes up just because of the attraction of the water into your muscle cells. Your strength. And in very few and minimal studies, it has shown to increase cognitive performance, which is basically mental clarity. So creatine, via an enzyme called creatine kinase, will use a phosphate group from ATP when ATP is available and stores it as phosphocreatine. So in your muscle cells, if you're taking creatine monohydrate, the majority of the creatine, right, it would be like the creatine would be as phosphocreatine due to the mechanism of that enzyme, creatine kinase. Now, this is a topic of mental clarity, so the brain. So the brain also stores creatine, but it depends on a creatine transporter that is present on the blood-brain barrier. That is why in very few studies it has shown that it enhances cognitive function. It depends on that creatine transporter that is present on the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is very selective. Creatine can only pass through if there is a creatine transporter, if there is a helping hand. Okay, so just like in the skeletal muscle, in muscles, right? When creatine enters the brain, it has the ability to get stored as phosphocreatine, and then it could just supply quick energy, because that's what phosphocreatine is for, is to supply really quick and fast energy, because glycolysis takes time, and cellular respiration as a whole, the citric acid cycle and the electron transport chain processes, they take long time comparative to the phosphocreatine system of ATP. So in very few of the studies, it's not strongly shown, but very few of the studies, it increases cognitive performance. And to note that in one of the studies, it increased cognitive performance in vegetarians more than meat eaters, because you can get creatine from the meat. And just speculating here, vegetarians have less, obviously, meat intake because they're vegetarians, and therefore they might not be getting creatine. And so in that way, vegetarians can get a lot of benefits of adding creatine, dietary creatine, in their diet. I know it might be highly controversial, and it's not clearly shown, only in few studies shown. So even though that is the case, it doesn't help to take at least 5 grams a day of creatine every single day. I do that too. I do that for my muscular purposes, but I feel like there is some sort of cognition aspect to that too, because if it has the ability to restore ATP in the brain, it is just easier for the brain to be mentally clear and produce proper, clear-cut, logical thought processes all the time. I don't know if it's placebo or not. It's probably not. It is. But that's why it's number 9th on my list. It is just for you to decide if you want to use creatine or not. It's very inexpensive. If you're working out already, then you should definitely be thinking about taking creatine. And so, yeah, those are the 9 tools or techniques that you can use to increase your mental clarity. Now, you can combine some of them like fasting and caffeine, and you have to definitely have to get great sleep for that. And then, yeah, you can combine caffeine and planning, goal setting, and everything. You can do anything with the 9 things we have talked about. And so I really hope that you liked everything that was discussed in this podcast. And yes, next podcast, you won't be listening to just me. There will be guests, 3 guests lined up. We're talking about all different things. Some things that I really want to just give a sneak peek of is we're going to talk about friendships. We're going to talk about career advice. We're going to talk about grad school. We're going to talk about porn addiction, societal issues. We're going to talk about muscle building, coach, how different coaches kind of advise people to build muscle, lose fat. So we will have experts on this on this podcast. And so you really don't want to miss any intellectually stimulating conversations that I will be having in the next month or so. So if you like this episode, click the like button. The only way to support this podcast is obviously hitting the subscribe button. And I hope to catch you in my next episode. Thank you for watching.